Alright, hello everybody. We are going over rotations today. This is all with our unit on transformations. So basically, we're figuring out how to move a figure in a different way. So rotations. Tell whether each transformation appears to be a rotation. Explain. So let's take a look at A. Boom. Alright, so we've got our pre-image, which is our red image right here. Remember, the pre-image is the one we start with. And then we've got the image, which is our blue image. Image. Right there. And first, let's start off by just tracing off. You can do this with your patty paper. Start off by tracing the star. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? And see if it's a rotation. Well, as you might guess, when we're talking about rotations, we're actually just talking about turning that figure around. And so something that's kind of like this. Boom. All right. And we're talking about turning a figure around a point. And at this point, we're turning it around the center of my little select box here. Now, can we make this fit this star at all? No, no, we can't. This is actually a reflection. So if I flip it, boom, and look at that. I can map it to the image pretty well. So this is a rotation. It's a rotation around this axis right here. What about this guy here, these two little pieces of macaroni? We've got our pre-image in blue. We've got our image here in red. So let's trace our little piece of macaroni. And then, what do you have to do to that little piece of macaroni to get it to fit the red? Well, we rotate it. Do, 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 do. Boom. All right. And we're actually, I didn't do it here because I just don't know how with this program, but we're actually rotating around a point right around here. We would consider that our point of rotation. You don't have to write this down because you're going to be writing it down just down below there, but this is your point of rotation. Okay. So, rotation is just turning a figure around a point. And for know that we're going to have a clockwise and a counterclockwise rotation. So we'll have this guy. A clockwise rotation is just something that follows the clock on the wall. We used to say, well, you guys wouldn't know about clocks on your watch anymore, but with Apple Watch, who knows? You may start seeing a resurgence. And if this is a clockwise rotation, then it'll move around like this. Woo! So there we go. Counterclockwise just goes the other way. That's counterclockwise. So think about it. How do you go over this point right here? Clockwise, you go to the right, and counterclockwise, you go to the left. So what about point of rotation? Well, in this example, this dot in here is supposed to be your point of rotation. Notice it's not always in the center. Sometimes it's this dot right here is your point of rotation. It could be even a dot that's not attached to your macaroni or your circle at all. So your point of rotation is the point around which you rotate your figure. Okay. Point around which you rotate your figure. And then finally, that angle of rotation is the angle formed by rotating your figure and what this means is if I've got my little coordinate plane right here and I've got a star on my y-axis, and then I rotate that star to my x-axis over here, I've rotated that star around the point of origin 90 degrees. And so that's my angle of rotation. Alright, example 2 says find each of the following images. So I want you to get out your patty paper here, and we're going to be playing with this square right here. So get out your patty paper and I want you to trace this square and trace everything in it. Make sure you're also tracing the the letters as well. So I've got my piece of patty paper here. I'm tracing my numbers, and the first thing it asks me to do is have a 90 degrees clockwise rotation of image C. So I look in my bottom right corner, image C. I find that right there. And then I know clockwise is going to be this way. And so I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees to the right. I'll select it one more time here. 90 degrees to the right. There we go. It's not perfect here, but you kind of get the point. And so I see that my C is now on my D. Oops. So the new point is D. If I do a 180 degree half turn rotation image of EF, well, I've got to come back here. Select this, go back to the original, and then 180 degree rotation is halfway around the circle. And now my EF is GH. And notice how my E and my G are in the same place and my F and my H are in the same place. So if they're asking about EF, then I have to start with G because that's in the same place as E. I want to tell whoever I'm talking about or whoever I'm talking to that my E is in the same place as G and my F is in the same place as H. So it's GH, not HG. No. Okay, a 90 degree counterclockwise rotation, image of AH. Alright. So I'm going to reset it back to where it was. And I'm going to go 90 degrees counterclockwise. And then I'm going to look at my AH here. And so here is AH, and it's been mapped onto DG. So remember, A and my D need to be in the same spot when I'm talking about them. So those are my first letters. And then G, my H, are my second letters. DG. And finally, 90 degrees clockwise rotation image of AD. Reset it over here, roughly. So I'm looking at AD clockwise, and that turns into a AD, turns into, remember, BA, because remember, we started with A in our original, our pre-image, went to D, so we've got to start with B and go to A, BA. Okay. So example number 3, you've got rotate the figure below 90 degrees clockwise about X. So first thing I want to do is I want to just draw a little clockwise arrow, and then I'm going to under that I'm going to write 90 degrees, right? Just to remind me what I'm doing. And then I'm going to pick a point on here. I'm going to pick this point right there. And then on my actual paper, not my patty paper, I'm going to draw a straight line from X to that point. Okay, go ahead and do that now. Alright, and then I want you guys to, if you have a protractor, great. If you have a protractor, that's fantastic. But if you don't, just find the corner of your paper or something like that, some 90-degree angle, and on your actual paper, I want you to also draw. Hold on. Also draw a line 90 degrees. I'm having trouble with this because I'm trying to hold a paper to this iPad and it's not working too well. Okay. And there we go. And then measure it out and you get, make sure that this line is the same distance from X to this point as this line is the same distance from X to this point right here. This angle should be 90 degrees. Remember, if you just trace it along the corner of a paper, then you're pretty good. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put your patty paper on there, and you're going to trace this line on your patty paper, and you're also going to trace the image on your patty paper. So we've got our image there traced on the patty paper along with the line. We've got the pre-image traced. And then I'm going to take that piece of patty paper that I just traced that along there, and I'm going to bring it over, rotate it, over to my image. And once I've got those two lines lined up, then I'm going to take my pencil and press hard and draw over my new image on my patty paper. And then when I lift that patty paper up, I should be able to see a just faint outline of my image. And then just fill that in with your pencil. And there is your new image. And this has been rotated 90 degrees about this point of rotation right here. Alright. Let's look at example 4. Example 4 gives me my pre-image, that's this guy right here. And then it asks me to rotate this clockwise 90 degrees about the rotation, or about the origin. So we're going to be rotating it clockwise. 90 degrees about the origin. Here's the origin 0, 0 right here. So go ahead and with your patty paper, you're going to want to put the patty paper on the graph there, on the grid, and make sure that you have this origin labeled with a little cross. Whatever your point of rotation is, you'll always want to mark that on your patty paper. And then I want you just to trace that figure. And now, since we're rotating it 90 degrees clockwise, let me just select this thing here. Okay, and I'll rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. Alright, move it just a little bit. And then I'm going to label my new points A prime, D prime, C prime, and B prime. And now it wants me to write the new points in this space right here. So where my A was 5, negative 2, A prime is now, well, let's see, here's my A prime, and so I'm going to go back 1, 2, and down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it looks like negative 2, negative 5. B prime I can see is 3, negative 5. C prime looks like 3, negative 3. D prime is 0, negative 2. And so, what's our pattern here? Let's take a look. With A, our x was 5 and our y was negative 2. But now, A prime, we've got our x is negative 2 and our y is negative 5. So, if you have xy, then your y is going to be moved to the x spot, and your x is going to be moved to the y spot, but we're going to say negative x because that sign changes. So one way to think about this, maybe it'll help you out, is you start with x, y, and then remember clockwise is this way, so your x gets moved to your y spot and it gets changed. Meanwhile, your y just gets shoved to the other side. So that's clockwise, 90 degrees about the origin. Well, what about counterclockwise, 90 degrees about the origin? Let's take a look. So I'm going to select my graph here real quick. And we're going to bring my image back here, roughly. And then 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Move it up just a little. Alright. Now you'll see that my A prime is at 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 5. And B prime is at negative 3, 5. C prime is at negative 3, 3. And D prime is at 0, 2. There we go. And so what happens to your x and y for this? Well, notice that for A, we had 5, negative 2, and for A prime, our x and y have switched places, but this time it's our y that changes signs. It was negative 2 here, and now it's positive 2. So when we rotate it counterclockwise, it's negative yx. And the way that you can remember that is that you have your y over here, and it changes spots along that counterclockwise arrow, and so it's the one that has a negative now. And then the x just gets pushed over to the side. And finally, 180 degrees around the origin. So we'll start back here, and then we'll go, whoa, 180 degrees. And so now A prime here, is negative 5, 2. B prime is negative 5, negative 3. Whoops. C prime is negative 3, negative 3. And D prime is negative 2, 0. So what has happened to our points? Well, with A we had 5 in our x and negative 2 in our y value. And so with A prime we have negative 5 in our x value and just 2 in our y. So the x's and the y's stay the same. It's just that now it's negative x, negative y. Alright. So let's go on to the next page here. I want you guys to try example number 5. It says, find the image of each point under a 90-degree counterclockwise rotation about the origin for this. So here are my hints for number 5, is that we're doing counterclockwise, 90 degrees, where the point of rotation is the origin, and we start at 5, 1. So go ahead and try that. So we're going to start with x at 5, 1. That's my x. We're rotating it counterclockwise. And so we have it at 1, or negative 1, 5. And then y at negative 3, 7. And rotating counterclockwise. And this one, let's just try our little trick. We know that if we're rotating counterclockwise, that y value is going to shift over to the x side, and it's going to become negative, and then our x is just going to get pushed over to the y side. Negative 7, negative 3. Alright, find the image of each point under a 90 clockwise rotation about the origin for negative 4 and negative 5 for M. Go ahead and do that. Remember that we want clockwise rotation. So clockwise, let me shift this a little bit here. Okay, So we're at negative 5, 4. Let's see if our little arrow trick works for this. So we had our negative 4, and it was shifted over and changed according to our clockwise arrow. So yep, it was shifted over and changed over there to positive 4. And then our little 5, negative 5, was just pushed over to the x's position. So if we do that with this, clockwise, start with our 6, and then shift it over to, start with our x, really, shift it over to the y's position and change the sign, and then what was in our y's position just shifts over to our negative 8. Alright, example 7. Find the image of each point under a 180 half-turn rotation about the origin. So we start with z being 6, 0. There's our z. And we'll go ahead and select that. 180 degree. That's a half turn. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I didn't put mark on my origin. And remember, guys, when you're doing this with patty paper, I want you to put the patty paper over the grid, and I want you to mark that origin so that you can line up your image with the origin, because that's what you're rotating it around. Alright. So now our z, really this is our z prime, is, and let's say z prime is at negative 6, 0. And then notice for the difference between 6, 0 and negative 6, 0, the x and the y didn't change, we just changed signs. So for my next one, A, I'm going to change the signs for negative 6 and for 4, so now it's going to be 6, negative 4. So just when you're rotating it 180 degrees around the origin, just change your signs. Alright, and example number 8, excuse me, find the pre-image of each point if the image after 90 degrees clockwise rotation is given. So this, we've just done a 90 degrees clockwise rotation, and remember, when we do that, then our pre-image is at the start, and our image is at the end. So how do we get from our image to our pre-image? Well, we just reverse it. We go 90 degrees counterclockwise. Start with our image, and then 90 degrees counterclockwise to get to our pre-image. So, in this one we are going to go counterclockwise to get to our pre-image here. And so right here we have our A prime is at negative 4, 7. So let me mark that down. Negative 4, 7 is our A prime. Let's select my graph. Looks like I'll be taking part of this E with me here. And we're going to go 90 degrees counterclockwise to find our original A preimage. Okay. Let me just line this up here. Okay. So it looks like it's going to be -5, -4. Hold on, looks like I messed up on something here. I started at -4, 7. Maybe I missed where I started. Ah, Mr. Kelly. Yep. -4, 7. There we go. One more time again. Rotate that sucker. Okay. That's a little bit better. So we've got -7, -4. And then for this one, we'll just do our little trick. Since it's counterclockwise, we're going to the left, and so we'll take that y value and then just shift it over to the x and change its sign, and then the x value just shifts over to the y. Alright, I'm going to skip example number 9 and number 10 because it's already been about 35 minutes and it's just kind of overkill. But you have a little bit of time to work on your homework, and I'll see you in class tomorrow. Alright, bye.